Well, hello, and thank you all for attending today's session. We have a special guest in our QCA Marketing Series webinars. This is the third webinar since we've started the QCA version of these marketing webinars. You're used to getting compliance essentials from us, and the marketing is designed to really help you grow your brand, protect your brand, as well as protect and grow the brands of those you serve. A few housekeeping items before we get started here today. This session is being recorded and will be available for download, and we will have links to provide. And we will have some questions at the end of the program, and that we encourage people to participate, ask questions as you go along. We will answer questions at the end. With that, I would like to introduce and welcome our guest speaker today, Ben Baker. Ben is the mind behind Your Brand Marketing, where he helps companies engage, retain, and grow their employees through workshops and coaching. Ben is a marketing and branding consultant, professional speaker, and the author of Powerful Personal Brands, A User's Guide to Understanding Yours, which was released through Amazon in September of 2018. He is a volunteer, whether it be for his congregation, festivals in the area, or through mentoring youth at the university level. Ben believes that he may not be able to change the world, but can influence his corner of it. He has worked with Seth Godin as an online coach for the marketing seminar, and he is an on-air personality as the host of the Your Living Brand Live show. Ben lives in the fishing village of Stevenson, British Columbia, just 30 minutes out of downtown core of Vancouver, where he walks to work, knows his neighbors, and believes that there's a balance between life and work. Ben is a husband, a father, and a member of his community. Moreover, he is a big believer that friends and family are paramount, and that we all have a responsibility to roll up our sleeves and help change our little part of the world. With that, I welcome Ben to the program.
Tim, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I've really got to shorten that bio a bit. It reminds me of Tiger Woods with the whole of, Phil thing where they were going off and he says that, and he won this tournament and won this tournament and won this tournament. And the answer was, yeah. You know what?
Well, you have a distinguished
I got to shorten that. People don't need all the hay in the barn, but thank you very much for having me. I'm feeling very honored and humbled.
We are pleased to have you and looking forward to what you have to share with us today.
Thanks. When Tim first came and talked to me, and Tim and I mean, let's get this straight. Tim and I have known each other probably 12 or 15 years, if not longer. I've been involved with PPAI and the promotional marketing industry for probably 23 or 24 years now. And Tim came to me and wanted to talk about communicating the value of brand. How do we bring the brand to life? How do we get people to understand the value of the brand and what it really means? And that was really important. That's where we came up to it because, in this industry, in the promotional marketing industry, your brand is who you are. It's who you are. It's what you do. It's why you do it. And why people should care about you. I mean, Jeff Bezos says it properly. He says, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. When you are not there to defend yourself, when you're not there to talk about yourself, in person, your brand speaks for you. And I equate that perfectly to promotional marketing because that's what promotional marketing does. Promotional marketing tells your story when you're not in the room. It's not just the piece, it's how people feel when they got that piece, when it was given to them. What's the emotional attachment? Why do they care about it? And conversely, why do they care about you? And there's certain pieces that people keep and they treasure and they use on a regular basis, and they think about the company that gave it to them. And that only elevates the story of the brand of the people that gave them that piece. And it's not just a promotional product, it's a gift. And that gift is treasured. If it's just, here's something cheap, that's got my name on it, it may end up in a drawer, it may end up in the garbage can. But if we take the time and we take a look and sit there going, how can we present ourselves in our best light? How can we give something that's valuable to the people that we're giving it to? our job is done, because that's how stories get told, and that's how people get emotionally tied to the promotional products, and that's how people are emotionally tied to your brand. They want to tell your story because they believe in you. They know, like, and trust you. And those are the things we need to be taking a look at. Now, unsafe products cause brand risk for everybody. It's really, really important to think about this. It's not just the supplier that's creating it. It's not just the distributor that's selling it. It's not just the company that's receiving it, but it's also their customers that are the end receivers of the piece. It goes through the entire chain. So if something is unsafe, it reflects badly on everybody, and it goes through the chain. And let me give you a great story about this. Probably 12 or 15 years ago, I don't know if everybody remembers it, but there was BPA in water bottles. It's a additive that was added to plastics that was causing, I believe it was cancerous, and there was a detraction and said we have to get rid of BPA in all water bottles. Well, this campaign that I'm going to talk to you about came out right when that shift was going on. And one of my clients was Health Canada, and the other one of my clients was, I believe it was Fraser Health Authority. And up in Canada, Fraser Health Authority is about 35,000 employees. They support through different health regions, different hospitals, different programs, probably about close to 1 million people or 1.5 million people. And Health Canada is responsible for health across Canada. But this particular program was for Fraser Health Authority. And Fraser Health Authority was building a brand new hospital. They had just built one right across the street from this very old, very decrepit hospital. They had built this brand new, state-of-the-art hospital that was just about to open in the next 6 or 8 months. And they came up to me and said, how do we make the celebration as we walk everybody from the old hospital to the new hospital? We're going to have media there. We're going to have dignitaries there. We're going to have politicians there. We're going to have everybody there. And we want to make a big deal of this, because this is, a several $100 million hospital, or maybe $1 billion hospital. I don't even remember what it was, but it was state of the art. And how, when we're moving people from one hospital to the other, we want people to have a sense of pride. And it's not just the employees that we want to have a sense of pride with, but we also, all the patients and the family of the patients. I said, okay, so let's work out a budget of first of all, how many people are we talking about? And they said, okay, it could be somewhere between 7,000 to 10,000 people. I said, okay, it's a fairly significant number. And they gave me a budget. I said, all right, fine. Great. We can work within that number. And we worked out, a half dozen different solutions. But the one that came to mind was, let's get a water bottle for everybody, because water, was talking about health. It was talking, it's easily portable. People could hold it in their hands as they're walking. There's a lot of stories that the PR department could tell about these water bottles, as that people walk across the street. And we were going to do them in the custom colors of the health region. Great. But the problem was, this was the time that BPA was doing it, and this is whether you had a number 5, code on the bottom of the bottle, or the number 7 code, number 2. And Health Canada couldn't tell us at that point in time. They probably knew, but they weren't allowed to tell us because they didn't want to, let the cat out of the bag, which numbers they were going to be for and what numbers they were going to be against. And we're 6 to 8 weeks out, and I pulled the plug. I said, guys, all we need is to have 7,000 or 10,000 of these water bottles with the old hospital picture on one side and the new picture hospital on the other side, walking across the street with all the media there, and somebody looks around, looks at the bottom, sees that it's got the wrong environmental number on the bottom, and it becomes a news story. And then it's not about the hospital anymore. It's not about the great work you're doing. It's the fact that you guys are giving away harmful water bottles. And we closed down the project right then and there. We switched it to some other project. It was last minute. We had to scramble. We made it work. But the problem was, if we didn't, the brand risk was huge. And nobody knew which way it was going to come down. And my clients at Health Canada wouldn't tell me, and Fraser Health didn't know, and any of my other clients didn't know, or they weren't saying, and it wasn't worth the risk. So if we take a look at it and say it's not just the risk for the person buying the bottles, but it's, it would reflect badly on me. It would reflect badly on the hospital. It would reflect badly on the region. It would reflect badly on the politicians, on the patients, on the employees. Everybody would be talking about something that they shouldn't be talking about. We need to think about these things when we're designing a program, because if we're not, there could be consequences that we hadn't even thought about that need to be considered. So why do we need to protect your brand? It seems simple. It really does seem simple, but a lot of people don't think about it. A lot of people sit there and say, I've got a budget, I need 5,000 items, 500 items, 50 items, whatever, and they just go out and buy something within their budget. And they don't take the time, they don't take the effort to sit there and say, first of all, is this something of quality? Is this something that my clients are going to want? Is this something that's going to reflect poorly on my brand? Is this something that people are going to talk badly about? And is this something that's going to fill a landfill? We need to be thinking about those things from the supplier level all the way down to the customer, to the end customer. When we're giving away a promotional item, it has to reflect well on your brand. It has to sit there and have people sit there and say, that was really cool. That was really neat. That was really exciting. I was part of this, and I'm excited about this. And I want to tell you about the company that gave this to me. A failure in this happened to me probably 9 or 10 years ago. And what happened was we were doing a test project for a customer of mine. They have a retail brand of Indian food that is across Canada. And they wanted to run a test. They have a flagship store in Vancouver. They're a Vancouver-based company. What they wanted to do is move away from plastic bags, because they're a very environmental company, and move to a cotton bag. So when you get your groceries from them, or you get your Indian food from them, it came in a nice cotton bag. And we decided at Christmas to do a test. We started talking about this in September to be able to have the bags for them in October. And we ordered 1,000 or 1,500 bags. Let's call it 1,500 bags just to be on the safe side. And it was just going to have an imprint in black ink on both sides of the bag, and it's a cotton bag. Now, we got the bags with lots of time. We weren't, we said, okay, let's get them before the campaign goes out to make sure that we have everything in house, everything's right. And all of a sudden I start looking through the bags, and every single bag had imprinted on the other. So when they put the bags in the box, they were still wet, and the image was double imprinted on every single bag. So it looked terrible. They looked absolutely terrible. They looked unprofessional, whatever. And we went back to the manufacturer. We said, look, this is the problem. And instead of them saying, oh my God, this is a problem, we know you guys are trying to get this out for a promotion. Let's start reprinting these things and get us back the bags. They said, no, you need to get us back the bags. We need to audit this ourselves. And if there's a problem, we'll get it back to you. And what they did was, instead of reprinting all the bags, and now in a rush, they pulled out the bags that they thought were still good, reprinted some bags, and then sent them back to us. And guess what? Even with the reprint, there was a 30% defective. At that point in time, we're too late for the Christmas promotion. It's done. We've wasted the entire thing, and not only has my client has nothing to give out to their customers, but it reflects badly on me, because this was going to be, if this had gone well, we would have ordered 40 to 50,000 bags a year, custom bags a year, that would have gone out across Canada. Well, guess what? Not only did we lose that order, I lost the customer, and my supplier lost me. And it's not only that job that they lost from me, they lost $250,000 a year worth of business from me. And I know to this day, and we're 9 or 10 years later, that company is still giving out cotton bags with their logos on it. They found another supplier who took care of them, who did it right, and made sure it was right. So not only was my client embarrassed, but I was made to look bad because I'm the one who suggested the company. The supplier worked for me. It's my responsibility. My supplier let me down. So throughout the chain, if we don't protect our brands, if we're not looking at quality, if we're not looking beyond the fact that it's black ink on a white bag, and sitting there saying, okay, what are we trying to achieve in the end, and what does great look for the end client? We're not doing our job. These are important things to be thinking about. Now, influence through trust creates brand loyalty. I can't say this enough. We need to be trusted by the people that we work with throughout the entire chain. It doesn't matter where we are in the promotional marketing business. We need to build influence through trust. And trust takes a long time to build and a minute to be lost. We need to be thinking about this. We need to be thinking that people deal with us, people buy from us, people keep buying from us and tell everybody else about us because they know, like, and trust us. They need to know, like, and trust us. If they don't trust us, they may do business with us once, but if we don't perform, if we don't go beyond the fact that we're the cheap solution, they're not going to come back because they'll find somebody else who can give them a cheaper solution. Clients are built and loyalty is built because they know that you're going to take care of them, that you're going to be the person that's going to be able to communicate what are they trying to achieve and help them achieve it. And that's a question that needs to be asked throughout the process, throughout the days. We need to be asking our customers, what do you want to do? Who is going to be getting this product? What do you want them to think about when they get it? How do you want them to act? What other pieces of marketing is this going to be related to? And how do you want people to feel when they receive this? What do you want them to do in the end result? These are important things. Suppliers need to be asking these questions of distributors and demanding it that they ask it of their clients, because the end win comes when there is trust built. And trust is built when the entire system works well together. When everybody knows what the end objective is, what are they doing, what's the project, who's going to be there, why is it important to them? What is the ramifications if something goes wrong? And if we can answer these questions and work with our clients to make sure that the wrong doesn't happen, that trust is built. And if we can keep doing that, we can build brand loyalty. Now, utilizing quality control to communicate your value. And I want to take a long time to talk about this. It is so important, and I'm sure Tim will agree with this, to take a look at quality control throughout the process. And this is not just the responsibility of the supplier. Yes, the supplier needs to have the quality control, but it's up to the distributor to understand what the process is and have their own quality control methods in place. And it's up to the end consumer to make sure that they understand what are the things that go into quality control and make sure that the products that they're buying are safe. Nothing is worse than being able to hand out a product that is unsafe to the end customer. I heard stories of nightmares of in the early days when teddy bears were being given out at car dealerships. For every car that was given out with a family, or any minivan that was given out with, to a family, the dealer gave away a teddy bear. Or, if there were 2 kids, 2 teddy bears. If there were 3 kids, 3 teddy bears. And they didn't take the time to find out how these teddy bears were built. And what happened was the eyes were not sewn in. And because the eyes were not sewn in, they popped off. And little kids, being little kids, put the eyes in their mouth, and some kids choked on them, and some kids ended up in the hospital. And that is something that needs to be thought of through the entire process. How were these things built? Where is the certification that says these have gone through rigorous testing? Is this product flammable? Is it safe for children under the age of 3? If I'm going to be giving this out to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, is the product deemed safe for this age, child? Who could end up with it? We deal with things like lead paint. That there is still lead-based paint out there, and being able to certify that the product that you are giving out to your end customer is not produced with lead paint is paramount. We need to be thinking about these things, because if we're not, we're creating harm. And we may not mean to do it, but through the fact that companies sit there and they try to save a few pennies, and they try to do things, say, okay, well, we have 10,000 products. These 5,000 products are all built with the same paint, so we're only going to test one. That means 4,999 products, and I'm exaggerating here, were not tested in a compliant basis. And so things can go wrong. We can assume that they were all done with the same paint. We can assume they were all done with the same process. We can assume they all meet the same quality control standards. But unless we're controlling them on a daily basis, how do we know that everybody knows that everything is done correctly? How do we know? And it's a matter of between assuming and knowing. And that's why testing happens. When I do, and the only promotional marketing that I do is completely custom. It starts off with a 3D drawing. It's conceptual. It's a minimum of 80 to 100,000 pieces. It is manufactured specifically for a specific client in a factory, and it's going out to a specific client for a specific program. If I was not spending the $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 per project to make sure that each and every single order is certified, compliant, and that it's safe, I'm not doing my due diligence to make sure that everything's done properly. And I understand it costs money. I understand it takes time. I understand it costs money. But the question is, if we took the time and explained to customers why things cost an extra 30 cents or 40 cents, because we're dealing with the safety of not only them and their brand, but the safety of their clients, how many people would be able to retell that story to their customers and have their marketing and their quality control people and their public relations people be able to spin that story in a positive way, to sit there and say, you know what, we bought, instead of buying 10,000 pieces, we bought 5,000 pieces because we had this budget, but we wanted to make sure that the 5,000 pieces that we gave out were 100% safe for our customers. And this is why it's important, because we value the relationship with our customers. And because we value that relationship with our customers, we're investing in a way to make sure that they are safe. We need to be able to have that conversation throughout the supply chain. That cheap doesn't matter. That cheap is just a matter of something can go wrong and somebody's brand is going to be affected, and cheap can cause huge recalls. We've all heard of the recalls in this industry, and not only our industry, but other industries. And it usually occurs when somebody doesn't take the time and does the effort to make sure that a specific part or a specific piece is tested to make sure that the quality control is there. We need to be thinking about that as an organization, because the more we can sell safety, the more we can sit there and say, look, we have your best interests at heart. We don't want to just sell you anything off the shelf that's cheap and cheerful. We want to sell something to you that, first of all, you can have pride in giving away to your customers. Is going to be safe for your customers. Is going to be in the best interest of your customers. And it gives you a story to tell to your customers that you value their relationship. And it's all about know, like, and trust. If we understand what are the factors that are important to our customers and be able to explain how safety something that is going to make them look more valuable to their customers and therefore build better, stronger, more loyal relationships with their customers, we're in a better place. We're in a much healthier place as an industry, instead of being an industry that just gives away 39-cent pens, 29-cent pens that turn around and 20% of them leak in somebody's pocket. And then all of a sudden we have a brand nightmare to deal with. And then we're dealing with recalls and everything that goes along with it. Better to give away a 69-cent pen that we know is tested, that we know is certified, that we know is not going to leak. And it gives the people that are getting the pen the confidence to be able to give it to their customer and sit there and say, look, spent a little bit more on this pen because we care about you as a client. That's the communication. That's the narrative that we need to be telling through this industry. And we need to be taking a look at our product lines and sit there and say, do this, and this product line meet the standards? And are we proud to be able to sell this in the industry? Are we proud to be able to present this to the distributor so they can present this to the end client? If the answer is no, get rid of them. We've got 750,000 products in this industry, if not more. The question is, if we lost the bottom 30% of those products, would we be better as an industry? I think we would. We'd have fewer SKUs to manage. We could be heavier on inventory. We could, take the time to make sure that those products are safe and that they are, higher quality and better value, and be able to reflect our brands better and be able to reflect the brands of the people we're selling to better. And I think the industry as a whole would be much better off for it. So these are the things I want to leave people with, is that brand is important. Brand matters, because if we're not selling on brand, we're selling on price. And if all we're doing is selling on price, we're becoming a commodity. And as soon as you become a commodity, you have to sell cheaper because somebody else is going to sell cheaper than you. And then you have to start cutting costs. And where are you going to cut costs? Probably in quality. And when you start doing that, the value of your brand diminishes. And that can happen quickly. And as soon as your brand diminishes to a certain point, you have no value. And your customers will start looking for other solutions. Do we have any questions?
Fantastic job, Ben. I really I enjoyed that a lot. And I think you covered a whole lot in a short time. There are several things that jumped out at me as you were talking, and I'll get to the questions here in just a few minutes, but I was making notes as you were talking, and I liked some of the stories and the examples you provided, but when you said that the supplier works for me, and it's my responsibility to choose that correct supplier, and it's my brand, that to me just really kind of summed it all up. I think in our industry a lot, we tend to blame, if we're on the supplier side, we blame the distributor. If we're on the distributor side, we blame the supplier. And the users of the products will blame whoever they got it from, or the whole stream. And it really comes down to each person has a role and a responsibility. And each has to look at it from, I have a responsibility to protect my brand, and I need to make the wisest, most responsible choice with that. And getting that then to flow down to each level. And right. I don't know, that just really resonated with me, and I liked how you said that.
Well, it's not only protecting your own brand, but it's also protecting the brand of people that you sell to.
Exactly.
Because if you don't protect their brand, if you don't make the people that you sell to look good, and if you don't take care of them, they'll go find somebody else who can.
Yeah. Very true. And you had the example of it where it happened. So I think, again, thanks for the stories. I think they help paint a nice picture. And I know you're a big fan of telling stories. And they really do. They help paint the picture and put it in real terms versus just a bunch of words. So thank you. Again, great job.
Thank you.
I do have we have a series of questions here, so I'm
Perfect. I
going to
love
jump
it.
right in.
Send me the questions. I love answering questions. It's far more fun to answer questions than presenting. So,
Well, we'll start off with this one. You had mentioned recalls, and so this says, what are the brand ramifications of a recall?
well, the brand ramifications of a recall are huge because it's all about trust. We had a customer of ours, and thank God they didn't buy it from us, but they ended up going out on their own and buying SPF lip balm from the United States up in Canada. Well, they went online and they found some place that was inexpensive, and they bought 10,000 or 15,000 lip balms. Well, all of a sudden they got a knock on the door from Health Canada that said, you're not allowed to do it. SPF is a controlled substance in Canada. You cannot give away, lip balm that has SPF on it unless it has, a Canadian, control number on it, which these ones didn't. And they ended up having to go and inform all of their clients through, an actual physical letter to please return the lip balm because of this.
Wow.
And it made them look, silly in the fact that they didn't, if you didn't take the time and the effort to make sure that the lip balm, something as simple as a dollar tube of lip balm was safe for me to use and certified by Health Canada, what else aren't you, keeping your eye on?
Very good question. And it comes back to, now you've used this promo item that now it represents your brand. And when they're asking this, their customer has got to be thinking, well, what about these other products that I typically would buy from you?
That's right. I
Are
mean,
they safe as well?
they buy, $30,000-$100,000 solutions from this customer, and they're sitting there going, okay, if they can't even get the lip balm right,
Yeah.
can I trust them when I buy $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 solutions from you?
And no one thinks about it.
And they
No
have
one
to.
thinks about it. So, well, I think this next question kind of builds on that a little bit. It says, how can we better train employees so that they understand how to sell the value of safety?
Yeah, I think the training is vital. And, it can't just be we have one or two safety people or quality control people in our company and say, well, we're just going to give it to the quality control people or safety people. Everybody in the organization needs to have a basic understanding of why it's important to have safety. They don't have to be able to cite manuals and rules and regulations, from stem to stern and be able to do that, but they have to be intelligent enough to know, wait a second, here's a red flag. I'm listening to this conversation. Here's a red flag. Maybe I need to ask some more questions. And I think it's really important that you give your employees, whether on the supplier side or the distributor side, the tools that they can sit there and say, wait a second here, is this going to somebody under the age of 3? Maybe we need to look into this a little bit more. Who is this going out to and how is this going to be used? And if people can learn how to ask those two questions and listen to the answer, they're going to be far better off to be able to sit there and say, you know what, maybe we need to get the safety people involved in this.
I could not agree with you more. It really comes down to creating an entire culture of brand safety. Companies
Yep.
talk all the time about their culture. Well, it's taking that culture and it's building onto it from what people typically think of when they think culture. And brand safety needs to be a part of that. Everybody needs to be looking out for that brand as well as their customers' brands.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's absolutely vital, because if everybody isn't thinking about safety, then we have a problem. I tell people that your brand is controlled by your worst employee on their worst day. You know, that's how people will typically know your company, by your worst employee on the worst day, because, either they are affecting the people around them and making the people around them surly and mean and horrible, or they're the ones who are actually dealing with the customer, and the customer's, having to deal with them directly.
Yeah.
So as a culture, we need to be thinking safety is part of the culture. Safety is one of the things that we need to be thinking about. And it's not just our internal safety, but it's the safety of the people that we engage with, our customers, our clients, our vendors. The more we can think about safety and how is this going to impact people?
Yeah.
And just ask that simple question, what is the impact of making this decision? The smarter decisions, everybody will make in the organization.
I'm actually I'm stumped a little on that, as far as I don't have anything to add. That was I was looking for something to add, and you're so true, and so spot on. I will say I'm going to one of the questions I'm going to ask here is going to be one of my own, kind of taking from what you just said, what we've been talking about, and kind of interject before I get into some of the others and say, there's a tendency among brands, and in I always try to clarify this, because especially in a session like this where we could have it by industry people, non-industry people, and so brands being those users of the promotional products.
Right.
There's this tendency among them often to assume when this subject is brought up. I don't, often, unless they're really large brands, I don't think they think about it, but when it comes up, they tend to assume that their vendors, being the industry distributors and or suppliers, are on top of all this. And I hear it often. How would you respond to that, knowing what you do about the industry, what you said, maybe not to regurgitate what you just said, but there's this, like I said, there's this tendency of people to just assume people are on top of this. What would your response be to somebody who says, well, I'm sure that my distributor knows this? I actually had it happen last week at a conference.
Yeah, and I would recommend that this person verify what their assurance is. There are 3,500 plus vendors in this industry, let alone the people that that sell direct from from countries around the world. Not everybody is going to have the same standards. Not everybody can afford to have the same standards. And a lot of people that we think are suppliers are just companies that have working out of their house. They buy directly from China. They have the stuff manufactured, decorated in China, shipped directly to the customer, and they never even see it.
Yeah.
And there's everything from the billion-dollar corporations in this industry to companies that operate at $300,000 a year or less as a supplier. And you need to sit there and say, okay, what is your quality control process? If you just ask that simple, do you have a documented quality control process? Can I see it? Is it up on your website?
Yep.
You're never going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. Every company, I don't care if they're $1 billion company or a $300,000 company, can make mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes. You know what? It's how are these people going to deal with the mistakes? Are they going to stand behind it? Are they going to take care of you? Are they going to take care of your customers? Or are they going to make it right? And those, unfortunately, in some respects, you're only going to find out once the stuff hits the fan.
When it's too late, yeah.
Yeah, when it's too late. But the more you can sit there and say, and whether it's the end user asking their distributor, what is the process that you use to be able to certify your vendors to make sure that the stuff that you're providing me is safe, or the distributors asking the same thing of their suppliers, or the suppliers asking the same thing of the manufacturers in China, and being able to see documentation along the way. You know what? That documentation is not perfect, but it's at least, it's something that says, what, we're thinking about this and we're doing our best, or we're working towards doing our best.
It comes down to what are you doing to mitigate risk up
Absolutely.
front? Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is why I carry, errors and omission insurance. This is why I carry recall insurance, because God forbid something does happen. I want to be able to take care of those that trusted me.
Yeah. This makes me, what comes to mind here is the recent study conducted by the Advertising Specialty Institute. And they do an annual state of the industry report. And just recently, they covered this topic. And the study that they put out is where they share the results of the study where industry suppliers admit to investing little in product safety, so much that 86% of the suppliers surveyed say they spend less than $25,000 annually. Of that, 30% admit to spending $0, and this is all for 2018. What do you think that says about the industry and what a brand should do with this kind of information? We obviously don't want them to run from the medium. There's a lot of good suppliers and distributors out there trying to do all the right things, but when you see these kind of numbers, 86% spending $25,000 or less, or under $25,000, that's alarming to me.
Yeah. I think that the water needs to rise, and I think the water needs to rise for all people. And there's a couple of things that need to come up with. End users need to realize that safety costs money, but there's ROI in it, because not having safety, having brand recalls, having their customers impacted could cost them millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on the corporation. It could even bankrupt them. So the end customers need to sit there and say, what is that worth to me to make sure that my products that I'm buying is safe? And sit there and say, am I willing to spend an extra $2 a piece, an extra $3 a piece? Maybe I buy less, but I buy better.
Right.
And there needs to be that motivation from the end buyer. The the distributors in the middle need to have that conversation. They need to be having that conversation with, both with their suppliers, and sit there and say, look, I only want to deal with, with suppliers that I know when I give products to my customers, that I know it's safe, and I know that, and I want to see the certification, and I want to know your process, and I want to know what you're doing. And I want to know that when I recommend something, it's recommended. And the distributors also need to have a conversation with their clients to sit there and say, look, this is why I only recommend these companies and these particular products, because I'm worried about your brand, and I'm worried about how it's going to be impacted if, God forbid, we have a recall, if somebody gets hurt, if somebody gets sick. And those are the things that the conversations need to have, and people are scared to have those conversations. And in 2019, we need to be having those conversations. We need to be having those conversations, because guess what? The end users are demanding it.
Yeah.
In today's world, the end client is looking for customer experience. They want to make sure that the experience that they have is seamless. And if all of a sudden they get a promotional product and it leaks in their pocket, or it makes somebody sick, or it harms their kid, or whatever, they're going to talk about it all over social media, and they're going to talk about the company that gave it to them. Mm-hmm. And nobody on social media cares about the distributor or the supplier. They get it. They care about the brand that gave out this piece, and then everything's going to go uphill to the distributor and the supplier, and that's when lawyers get involved, and that's never a fun thing.
No, and I hear from many of the users, the end buyers, that this is important to them, but in that same report that I just cited, in that same study, it notes that roughly 50 to 55% of the industry distributors believe their clients do not care about brand safety and responsible sourcing of promo. Why do you, I'm going to put you on the spot here, why do you think distributors believe this? And or is it valid, or really a lie they might be telling themselves? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
I tend to think it's denial based on the fact that they're not willing to have the conversation with their clients.
Agreed.
They're not willing to sit there and have the conversation. This is why we supply this product. This is why it costs more money. And this is what the end effect will be for you and how it will add value to your brand. There's too many people in this industry that are just looking to sell whatever's cheap that day.
Yeah.
Whatever flyer they got that morning that's 30% off, that's on the promo list, that's what they're sending out to their customers. And there's a lot of people out there that are just looking for cheap stuff. There is, because the problem is they're not educated to know any better. You're right. The end customer assumes whatever they buy is going to be safe. They assume that if they're buying it through regular channels, it's going to be safe, and that it's going to be certified, it's going to be regulated, whatever. And you know what? 90% of the stuff that comes through, or 95% of the stuff that comes through, is safe. But you know what? You never know where that rogue piece is going to come from.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure that there is a process for diligence, or else, it's like you can drive blindfolded, 5 days a week. And the first 4 days you may get from point A to point B safely. But on that fifth day, you may cause a 100-car accident. You never know what's going to happen.
Again, well said, and I don't have a whole lot to add on that. I think you covered that one really, really well. I'm going to hit you with one last one here, and it goes a little bit off the product safety piece, but I'm going to preface this one in that the industry's been fixated on product safety when there's so much more to compliance and having a robust compliance program. And I would dare say that for a lot of the brands out there, if you look at their social responsibility programs and the things they do, and even environmental stewardship and sustainability, these carry a ton of weight with these companies. And some of them might even be looking at social before they even consider product safety at times, because it's so ingrained in what they're already doing in their processes. And so with that, the fact that we focused a lot when we talked about safety and quality day, it really kind of has to do at the product level. But what social responsibility is starting to take on a little bit more of an elevated role now in the promotional products industry. And what market trends do you see, or what you have heard people talking about, that the promo industry is either heading the right direction, that they need to do a better job when it comes to social responsibility and workers' rights? Where are you standing on that fence, and what do you think can be done about it?
Well, I mean, every time we talk about social responsibility, I still have a view of that factory in Bangladesh that I think it was a t-shirt factory that was designed to be a one-story building. It was a three-story building, and it collapsed, and God knows how many people died. And we need to start thinking about the humanity behind the $5 t-shirt.
Yes.
What is it costing us in terms of our humanity for a $5 t-shirt? And I think that as important as safety is, I think that this is more important. I truly and absolutely do, where we sit there and say, we're always looking for what's cheaper, and what's the human cost of things being cheaper, because there has to be a cost. You can't produce two identical things at 30% cheaper, and one being 30% cheaper, without something being skimped on. And a lot of it is labor. A lot of it is work conditions. A lot of it is, the human dignity factors. And we need to, as end buyers, be questioning, not only what are our safety audits, but what are the social audits? How often do you actually go to your factories?
Yeah.
Do you have pictures online that show the working conditions of the factories that you work for? Are you guaranteeing that there is no slave labor? Are you guaranteeing that that there isn't child labor laws being broken? Now, child labor laws in Pakistan and India are different than they are in the United States and Canada, and we need to take a look and say, what are the laws being broken in the country that they're being perpetrated in? And not trying to sit there and say, okay, we need to have everybody working in North American standards. If we could, that'd be wonderful. That would be absolutely wonderful. But we need to look at this as a world stage, and there is reality out there. But we need to sit there and say, okay, if these countries have set social standards and social responsibility as a factor, and most of these countries do, are they being lived up to by the factories that you're partnering with? And there has to be people asking that question on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, and that's got to come from the end buyer. It's got to come from the distributor. It's got to come from the supplier. Everybody needs to be sitting there going, say, are the products that we're buying being produced ethically?
Yes.
And if they're not, why not? And why are we buying this particular piece? Because if all of a sudden the factory realizes that their orders are drying up because of the ethical standards that they're doing, they may have to raise their prices, but they're also going to raise their standard of living.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I think that's about it. We've been on here for quite a while too with the questions. We really extended this. I really appreciate you doing this again today, Ben, and staying around to answer the questions and go a little more in depth here. I thought it was a great session, and I'm sure our listeners are going to get a lot out of it. And once again, we thank you for being on the show today.
My pleasure. And as I say on the finished screen, if people want to have a conversation with me about how to communicate the value of their brand, they can book a 30-minute session with me, to see if it's worth us working together on a consultative basis. It's you do bit.ly/book Ben Baker, and it's right there, within the final slide. So love to have a conversation with people and see how I can help them communicate their brand and their value better, both internally and externally.
Fantastic. Again, thank you, Ben. To our listeners, thank you for participating today and listening in. We hope you learned some valuable insights about protecting your brand, how to source responsibly when it comes to promotional products. For those that are part of our existing participating base, we hope that we were able to provide the tools and guides to help you guys help tell the story to why your involvement with QCA is so valuable, and that the value that a third party brings to your business. So we thank everybody for participating. Wish you all the best, and have a great day. Go protect brands.